Now, Spencer Shaw is one of the founders of Paid Traffic Co., which you may remember Kevin Davis was on and is a part of. And he also has his own company called PodKick.com, where he provides services for podcasters. So naturally, we have him on to talk a bit about podcasting and a few other media sources and lessons he's learned from Social Traffic Lab, as well as his current developing software SaaS company, which is going to be a dashboard. And I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit more. So, Spencer, thank you for coming on today.
Hey, man. Glad to be here with you.
And a little bit later, I'm going to have to set up my lower third and get it fancy. I do have the image created, but I have not set it up yet.
Oh, man. I don't know how I can even stand being here without someone not as professional as me.
To be fair, though, it makes you look great. So
there we go.
If I had it, it wouldn't be that differentiator. So
yeah.
We're seeing success with some of these guys like Rise to the Top, and especially Entrepreneur on Fire. He's been posting his income reports. So podcasting has really become a big deal, a big issue, and it's one of those things a lot of people talk about, and everyone keeps saying, "Hey, it's only going to grow. It's only going to grow," and we've seen that. So that's part of the reason I was happy to have you on here today. One thing that I wanted to address first is the Gurus for Hire video.
Sure.
So for people that haven't seen it, it's a very clean, very sleek video. Looks extremely nice. And I'm interested, what software did you use to record that, and what kind of media player is that playing in?
So for most videos or any video, and this helps to know the terminology when you're hiring it out, whenever it's like text floating around or there's really cool looking effects, there's a program called After Effects. It's Adobe After Effects. And it used to be really expensive to hire someone to do that and really tedious. With Fiverr, it's cheap. And with Odesk. So you can get things that look awesome for next to nothing now. And then as far as editing programs, Kevin, he prefers Adobe Premiere, the Premiere program. Mm-hmm. And I use Final Cut Pro.
But I'm wondering, for the actual, did you guys record that on a Skype, or how did you guys actually record the video?
Which one?
The main one on the Gurus for Hire, it's kind of and I've seen this before where it's a split, and it's a square on each side.
Oh yeah, so the program that we use is this program with Skype. Mm-hmm. And sorry, I'm just trying to jog my mind there. It's called Ecamm. It's a Skype tool, and it's a Skype recorder. It's like $29. And then you can choose. Actually, like the first time you record, you should go through and adjust your preferences, but you can choose all that stuff. And it's killer. In fact, I use that for 90% of my podcasts. I use that Skype call recorder program.
Gotcha.
If you're on a PC, there's other programs. There's one called Pamela.
Gotcha. So it's Apple only, I assume.
Yeah, that program, the call recorder, Ecamm is. But Pamela is PC or Mac, I believe. Or maybe it's just PC.
The actual, do you know what kind of media player, what you guys are actually using to play it on the site?
Yeah, we use Wistia.
Okay.
We've been a Wistia customer for probably 2.5 years now. And they are by far a favorite video hosting provider. We've used Easy Video Player, YouTube, Vimeo, Vidler. But Wistia just kicks everyone's butt. And the people there are awesome.
Since we are talking about Wistia, what are some other cool things that you can do with it? Because the price tag for Wistia isn't cheap. So for the average person, they might not be taking it that serious yet, or willing to kind of throw down that kind of commitment. Because I think it starts at $200 a month. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I think
you can get 5 free videos or something.
I think you get 5 free videos. We're on a grandfathered account. I think we pay $100 a month and we're unlimited or something like that. But they adjusted their pricing recently. I think you can get something for like $29 a month or $19. But the advantages with Wistia that we have gone through and what we've done is we use Office Autopilot for a lot of our contact, database and emails. And so because we have a Wistia player, when we send out an email to our customers and they watch a video, we have an additional tool that Jake Hauer, he's got a company called Fused App. So now I've explained Fused App, Wistia, and OAP. But what we do by having all those tools together is when a person clicks on an email, we know what video they watched, and we also know how long they watched the video. And on Wistia, you can do other things like 5 seconds into the video, you can make it stop and have a pop-up for an email, or you can have it go into another video. Like, there's so many other additional things that you can do with Wistia that are just awesome.
Gotcha. Well, with the pricing change, in that case, it sounds like a no-brainer. I mean,
it's totally worth it. And even the 5 videos, just, like, get your best videos, put them up there, and I don't know, delete them, I guess, if
yeah.
or throw it to YouTube,
Yeah. So with Social Traffic Lab, it's still kind of around, but I'm kind of interested in some of the lessons you've learned from that and doing that, because I think you guys did it for 2 or 3 years, so
yeah,
it was around for a decent amount of time. So kind of looking back, so the Spencer Shaw of 2014, if you go back to 2011, 2012.
Oh yeah, I can totally tell you. I can tell you what I did good and how I totally screwed things up. I'll save this how I screwed things up for a minute, because I did a fantastic job at that. What we did really well is we grew the business fast. And by the way, we still have customers using some of our software tools, and they've been we've had customers 28 months, like billed for 28 consecutive months, and they'll continue to stay on, and we still service them. The company grew really fast. Month two we were good five figures, low 5 figures. Month 3, mid 5 figures. I mean, like it was just like that. And the reason why is because we executed like crazy. And you get to a point where you're so busy that you realize that it doesn't have to be perfect. I think when you get into that space where you're striving for perfection, and you get to a point where it's called like diminishing returns, and weightlifters actually use this phrase as well. So like when you're lifting weights, after you've got to that point where like you're just spent, any lifting weights after that, you're not really getting more return. And the same thing can happen on Social Traffic Lab. So that's when we freed up with time, I would go down a rabbit hole and focus on something that I shouldn't. The other things that we did really well is we were very consistent with our mailings. I probably would attribute 80% of our success to that, being really consistent with mailings. And then the other success is being really consistent with ads. So if that machine is always running, then you're forced to take care of your customers, and you're forced to continue to push product. And if you have a continuity built in, then by putting those people in and not having to resell them all the time, it just exponentially grows. So those are the things that we did, some of the things that we did right.
Gotcha.
Now we can get to the things I totally screwed up.
Definitely, because I think learning at the expense of others is the best kind of learning.
Yeah. So where we screwed up was not being consistent with the email. We got really complacent. So we would have a good run, and then we say, you know what? Let's work on a bigger product or bigger project, and let's hold off mailing our audience as much, because they probably don't want to hear from us, and that's so false. When you're in love with someone, you want to see them as much as possible. And the same thing for a customer. When a customer really loves what you have to offer, they want to hear from you. And we were mailing consistently, like several days a week. And once we pulled out from mailing several days a week to 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or every other week, then sales dramatically dropped. The next thing that really hurt the business was when Kevin and I decided that we would, I wanted to do a lifestyle thing. So, I'd read the 4-Hour Work Week and really wanted that. So me and my family, we moved to Puerto Rico, to the Caribbean. And we got a place on the beach, like literally on the water. And I was next to Hobos Beach, which is one of the best surf beaches in the entire Caribbean.
Respect.
It was awesome, man. Surfed like 4 or 5 days a week. Still worked, but I didn't have all of the systems in place to make it happen. What I would have done differently, like we had virtual assistants, and Kevin and I have both been working with virtual assistants since 2008 or so. But what we didn't put in place was having a cornerstone type of person, like a virtual assistant, preferably like an American-based person that would be running the day-to-day operations. So it'd be more like a project manager type. That would have been the lifesaver for us. Whereas we used tools, so we were really good at communicating. We used tools instead of a person. Had we said, you know what, look, we're going to set $5,000 a month for this person, nothing would have gone off the rails.
Gotcha. That's a very big important tip. I know I was talking with one of our founders, and something they've done very well is their customer support. And they have an in-house customer support team, but that's definitely the hard step for a lot of entrepreneurs is when you need to hire someone, and not just hire someone to do a one-off project or to help out a little bit, but saying, hey, maybe we should bring someone on full time here.
Yeah, even more than the customer support would be someone day to day looking at our analytics and saying, okay, yesterday we had $2,000 in sales, and now our MRR, monthly recurring revenue, is at X amount. You know what I mean? Like if they came through and said, here's all your stats, here's where we're allocating the traffic to, here are the ads that are working. Like if someone came through and there was a team member that did that, then that's more than the customer support. If that's the actual pushing the vehicle forward, and then constantly helping us nurture the relationships with other people, both vendors, partners, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely priceless to have that.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense too, because that's the kind of day-to-day stuff that's always kind of chipping at you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it keeps you, it's one of those small rocks, big rocks things. If you guys need to just focus on a webinar or putting out a new awesome piece of content or a new course, those day-to-day operations can really chip at you and chip into your time. And, you spend 2 to 3 hours handling some of those things, and you can't really focus that time on the bigger stuff. And especially if you are trying to have a more reduced role, maybe if you'd just been able to put in those 3 hours and put them to the most high-level task, mm-hmm. it would have kept things moving.
It's true. There's not a lot of really important things. It's strange. The most high-revenue people that I know are actually have the most time. So it's contradictory to what most people would think. It's the people that are like always frazzled and doing that don't have their crap together. And so, when we went through those transitions, we thought we had it together. We went through moments of being frazzled and went through moments of finally getting things together. So.
Gotcha. Now, with the 2 more specific questions kind of really focused towards that, I saw you guys have the YouTube trailer image.
Yes.
How important did you find that to be? I mean, you guys were pushing out a lot of YouTube content. Mm-hmm. Did you notice any kind of noticeable conversions or click-throughs or anything specific there? Or no?
Yeah, we did. We would notice more subscribers come from the YouTube trailer. And another thing that we did is to go through, and it takes a little bit more work, but like on that YouTube trailer, you have to do it in your video production program. But to take like your past 2 videos or a video you really like, and on that last slide, have the video playing and then blue box it, like put that annotations around it so they can click on that next video. That did really well for us. Video is powerful. It's one of the most powerful tools out there.
So you guys did that with every video you uploaded, or just with the trailer?
No, not every video uploaded. I think we started doing it, I don't know, probably 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And and it's something we need to be more consistent with. It's good for the branding piece. But the overall, the best thing is to run ads on YouTube.
You just gave me an idea. That's why I'm running it down. When I do my Friday recap tomorrow, in the end, I'm going to link to the previous Friday recaps. And hey,
Yeah.
we'll see.
So the way you do that, technically, the easiest way is to use Keynote or to use PowerPoint to create your slide. So whatever your video dimensions are, 720 by 1280, and create your text in that slide, and then leave a box. So leave on the side of your video, leave 2 boxes or 1 box, open, black, and then bring that into your video editing tool, and then all you have to do is just drag the video onto that, drag the videos on, resize them, and you're done. It's that simple.
Gotcha. Yeah,
and it can be 15 seconds.
I have a buddy who is a YouTuber, so he does a lot of just more like vlogs and things like that. I mean, he's definitely had some success, but as a marketer, you're kind of like, man, if you could figure out a way to actually monetize this and focus on something instead of just like doing entertainment, because obviously trying to make money from ads is good luck.
Yeah, so I've consulted with, I'm trying to think what he's got over 1 million subscribers, does really well. And he makes the majority of his money off of sponsorships. So once you get to that level, it's really sponsorship money. It's not the ad revenue money that makes a big difference. And if you have your own products, one of the things, if you are a YouTube partner, you can link to your own website, which if you wanted, it could be like an affiliate promotion or your own products or things like that, because it keeps them inside that YouTube ecosystem.
Did you guys run any YouTube ads while you were doing the Social Traffic Lab, or have you had any experience running YouTube ads?
Yes, yeah, we have. We do the YouTube ads because we've done a few of them with Social Traffic Lab, but mainly for our other products and for clients. The reason why they work so well is, I think, for the retargeting purpose. So, is your audience familiar with retargeting or remarketing?
Yeah, we've had a few.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, to me, that's like one of the most valuable things out there. And so if you can pull them from YouTube into your remarketing, again, pulling them from Facebook into your remarketing, that's where the real value is. There's a guy who does. Man, I wish I could remember the channel. He sells insurance. It's like e-insurance or some kind of insurance thing, and his videos are awful. They're ridiculous, but he's probably one of the best YouTube marketers that's generating money out there right now.
Huh. Interesting. Respect.
Yeah. So, yeah, he'll dress up in like crazy costumes, low production quality, awful stuff, but it works like crazy.
Huh. Well, hey. And also, I saw you had the email marketing masterclass. So I saw that was a video. It was, say, a 7-minute or 8-minute video with so your video is kind of, you're down here, and then it's the mind map.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a link to a page where they could download the mind map and purchase the product. And I'm wondering, did you guys do that with a lot of your courses, kind of that mind map function, or how well did that work out?
Yeah, so we've done that a lot. The mind mapping tool that I used was MindMeister, and then I just recorded that in ScreenFlow. And the reason why I turned on the webcam is to bring in that human element, because people just looking at a PowerPoint presentation, it doesn't really fly as much. We're in a world now where people want to connect, and the hand-drawn videos, those still work as well, but people really want that human connection because they're so disconnected. They're just in love with their phones all the time. And so that worked really well. And what essentially I'll do is we'll map out on some of our bigger courses. We'll map out on a PowerPoint what the course is going to be, and then we'll teach some concepts from there, and then we'll do a live training where we're actually selling the course. So we haven't even created all of the content for the course. And sometimes we'll just take little pieces from the course or from a webinar and just chop it and then turn it into a YouTube video.
Gotcha. Very cool. So how did that promotion do pretty well, or?
Yeah, it did well. I think I can't remember what the product sold for. I don't know, it was 97 or 297. I have no clue. We've got a lot of different master classes. I think most of our master classes sell for 297 or 497. But yeah, it did well. We got some really good results. We got people creating campaigns and setting up the correct targeting and structuring and segmentation that really makes a difference. And I see so many times where I messed up in the past where we were really broadcast heavy. So we, instead of saying, just taking the time to map out, like, customer starts here and, hopefully they end up at this part, what's that sequence look like, and then writing it out. Whereas many times in the past, broadcast, and that, one, it consumes your time, but two is you don't gain that consistency, especially on the, putting a person into a funnel and then having that funnel work for you.
Yeah, and I hate this subject because when I first got into internet marketing, I did affiliate marketing, and it was how to get your X-Back product, and I must have ended up with around 30,000 leads, and because first off, I wasn't consistent with my emails. So what you said about being consistent is huge, and I completely agree. But also to kind of speak what you're saying there, I wasn't very good at segmenting my list. So just male or female, hey, did you get your ex back? Are you still trying to get him back? Are you single now? If I had done that, I can only imagine what I might have been able to do with that business, where it might have still been. But instead, it was kind of more just a one hit.
Yeah, one of the biggest tips that I can give, and people hate hearing it, but one of the biggest tips I can give for people doing email marketing is when you get a subscriber to personally email them. And I know everyone here that's read the 4-Hour Workweek is probably just like swearing at me right now. But I mean, unless, and that's, take out the fact that if you're doing a launch, like, you can't do that during a launch, because if you're doing a launch, you're going to get, depending on it, but I mean, we've had it where we get, 3,000 emails in a day, 4,000 or 5,000 emails in a day. Like, you can't respond to that. But on a normal, sequence, you've got your lead pages, people opting in, you're running campaigns. Totally. Like, if it's like 20 people, like 20 opt-ins a day, maybe it's just a certain, landing page, and it's got a high lifetime value for customer, hit reply, like, email them. That's like one of the most valuable things that anyone can do. And the reasons why, selfishly, because if you start a dialogue with them, it by default puts them into the Gmail primary tab. So now you've got their prime real estate. Two, you have context with them, and you're not just an autoresponder. You actually have context. And three is that you get to ask them questions and discover things that you probably don't even know. And those are the super valuable pieces. And so now when we get new new subscribers, I love just hitting reply and being like, hey, thanks for joining the list. Totally appreciate. Hey, thanks for signing up. Totally appreciate it. What can I do for you? And people are like, you actually emailed me? It's weird.
That is a very awesome point. I'm writing stuff down if I'm ever not focusing on the camera. And that gets brought up in the startup community a decent amount too. It's things that don't scale.
Yep,
and,
Paul Graham said that.
Yeah, and at some point, hey, if you're getting 100 emails a day, maybe you're not able to do that anymore. But in the beginning, to really have that interaction with your customers, and you're getting in the primary inbox, you're finding out what kind of problems they have, and you're making more true fans. You're getting ambassadors. You're able to achieve these things. So that's a really great tip. I've been considering doing something slightly similar. I have a buddy who has a video email company. So it's kind of basically, it's like sending a Wistia video in an email, and it makes it very easy to do all of that. So what I wanted to do for one of our launches and I'll have to see, because if we do a launch and we get 100 new, buyers, it's not going to work. But for something that's slower, I want to try sending out a video to every single person, be like, hey, thanks for purchasing. So happy to have you on board. What can I help you with? And in a similar fashion, really give that human element and that human touch.
You can actually do that with Wisty. It's a pretty advanced tactic, but you can have a content video, say it's like 3 minutes long, and then you can record the intro piece. And Wisty has the technology to be able to stitch the two together. So it could be like, you could do a default, like record 50 different top names. So like, hey John, dude, I totally thanks for signing up for, XYZ. I've got a really cool video I think I'll help you out. And it like stitches it together. But one thing that I've done that works really well, it does not scale, but if you're selling a high-end product, works really well, is I go into YouTube, and from your YouTube dashboard, you can record from your webcam. And so what I did is on high-end products, on people that we've segmented, that are like already on a segmented list interested in a product, then I'll go into the YouTube dashboard and I'll click record, and I'll be like, hey Sweeney, I want to thank you, man, for taking an interest in this product, and we're really excited about it, and from your feedback I think you'd be excited about it too, da 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 da, and then send them the unlisted link to the YouTube video. You will probably convert 90%. I'm serious, it works that well. So, and if you think about it, if it's on a high-end product, we've done it before where we're making probably, if you equate it down to time, probably about $10,000, $11,000 an hour. So it's not bad. It's good money.
Well, yeah, and I think it's one of those things. I mean, it's like if you're doing the higher sales you're doing, the more likely someone's going to want to have you on the phone. And some of the customer support stuff I was mentioning was basically like our retargeting campaigns or our shopping cart abandons. What Joe would do would reach out to customers personally on the phone and be like, hey, not him himself. We had a customer support person that did it. And it's just like, hey, notice you filled out this form. You were going to buy. You didn't. Just wanted to see if there's any questions, I could answer for you. And it's that high touch that did really well. And it's not in a sleazy way, because, I mean, like, you're sending someone a personalized video. You're not, like, calling them and being like, hey, what's your credit card information? Buy this right now,
Yeah. There's a big disconnect. Over the last, I don't know, probably 12 months or so, I've been in a lot of the VC and angel circles, and I've spent a lot of time with startups. And the disconnect is that world sits over here, and the internet marketing world sits over here. And those are too far, like two gaps. And I see the internet marketing world believes so much in leverage and so much in like how important their time is, and like there's a lot of, I guess the word I'm trying to come up with, like there's a lot of ego on the internet marketing side of things, whereas this startup and angel and VC side, those are guys that are in the trenches, that are calling up their customers, that are taking care of people, and these are dudes that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you send them an email and within 5 minutes they reply. Whereas like on the internet marketing world, it's like, well, I'm so important, so maybe I'll get around to it at 4 o'clock or tomorrow. You know what I mean? And it's weird. It's I don't quite understand it yet.
It's kind of them being on a pedestal and feeling that they're above their customers, whereas some of these startup guys, VCs, what have you, are always in that same kind of in the trenches, or just see themselves as one of the people, I guess maybe.
Yeah. I think that when the paradigm shifts is when you realize like everything is about solving the customer's problem, and it's about helping the customer as much as possible, like whatever it takes to help them. And like when that shift happens, magic happens. Like you enjoy the business more, revenues go up. And if you focus on the revenue or on the contest or on the metrics, then it's like, I don't know, like you lose sight of when you really started it. So
Makes a lot of sense.
I'm speaking from personal experience,
No, I,
from losing sight and like now coming around and saying it is all about the customer and just doing whatever I can for them.
yeah, and it's one of those. I've seen it now that I've been putting out more content, and we've been more content marketing focused. People always are like, man, I do it for the customer, I do it for the comments. These things mean so much to me, and you're always like, eh. But now that I'm putting posts out there, when someone comments on a post and says something nice, or comments on a Facebook post and says, oh man, the Friday recap is great, really like how you do it. Like it does. It makes you smile, it makes you happy, and you kind of get this like doing it for the customers, and when you're or fans or audience, whatever you want to call them, and I feel like when you shift into that mindset, the less focus on money probably will end up bringing in more.
It does. I actually learned that lesson from a friend of mine. His name's Naveen Didakavi, and he owns a software company in Georgia. He does really, really well, and he went to Georgia Tech. He's a brilliant software engineer. Have you heard of the name Ramit Sethi?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so he actually does a lot of Ramit consults with him, and he consults with Ramit. Like Naveen's a great guy, and Naveen explained to me the importance of that customer, and to what is Naveen's website? How to create recurringrevenue.com or something like that. But sharp guy, and he laid out that importance, and he said to me in conversation, he goes, I decided that I didn't want to be a startup that took venture money and then tried to exit for $500 million. And I decided that I didn't want this, sit on a lounge chair and never touch the business and make lazy profits. He's like, I really cared about the customer, and it shows. And what he did to increase his income is he just stepped up the value of the customer. So instead of taking projects that were $5,000, $10,000, it's now $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 projects. And so, but it's always about the customer. And him explaining that to me really, it shifted the way that I approach my marketing and my business.
And it's interesting to see kind of these shifts, because I know I was saying with Kevin, I was like, it seems weird because you guys were on it's one of those grass is always greener. So some of the guys that only do products are always like, man, if I could just get into the service side of things,
Mm-hmm.
or some sort of monthly, then I would only have to worry about 5 people and just keeping them happy. But then sometimes you hear about people on that side that have the clients from hell, and they're like, man, if I could just sell a product and not have to, deal with these people. So it's interesting to see those two sides and see how you guys have kind of shifted sides.
Yeah, I mean, we still have the software and the new product that we're coming out with, this new dashboard. We're still very investigative stage. Like we've architectured some stuff. What we've done now, geek speak, is we've really just taken a lot of like APIs and code, and we've Frankensteined the thing for now.
You should start using Munge.
Munch?
Munge, Munge. That's what Paul Graham kind of calls hacking.
Okay, Munge. Okay, so I'm gonna turn that into an action word. So we've been munging things, and that's where you have to start. But we may take venture money. I don't know what we'll do with that. To really turn it into something. Software's great because most software solves a huge problem for people, and that's what's great. And so let the software do the heavy lifting, and then follow up with an awesome customer support. I was talking with Nathan Latka from Hey Yo. He had a really successful company. They went and they got funded, and he said in their first week, I think their customers are getting like 6 personal phone calls in their first week, and some of their products are like $29 a month. So that's pretty incredible that the team is taking care of their customers that much. And it, just in this world of Amazon and Walmart and eBay, context, people, that's what's going to win it out.
It's interesting though, because you see the Amazon, you see the Zappos, and with the Amazon though, it's while they aren't providing support, it's more about they're giving you reviews, they're giving you the best price, they're making it easy to make the buying decision. Like I remember my mom was telling me, so she's getting a motorcycle and she was buying a motorcycle book, and she is overcomplicating the process. And I'm like, listen, you have an iPhone, we bought you an iPhone for a reason. Pull it out, check on Amazon real quick, see how much the price is, and then run with it. Because I'm like, if the price is, I don't know, you save $3 and then you got to order. I'm like, just buy it in the store. Keep it happy with life.
Yeah, and I think what Amazon does is they provide trust. Like if you're a Prime member, you're like, dude, I'm getting it in 2 days, like without fail. It's 2 days.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
They just added their one over here somewhere around Central Florida, so some of us are groaning a little bit because the sales tax is not exciting.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
But supposedly now, I don't know if it's Prime or in general, we're gonna start getting a lot of things in like a half a day, which I don't even know how that's possible, but yeah.
Wow, yeah, that might be worth paying for.
Exactly. So I was like, on the plus side. But so anyways, let's shift gears a little bit. You
Okay.
have the Business Growth Podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of interested in, because I don't think it's attached to anything directly, so I'm kind of interested in why you wanted to start it and what your goal for is it, what it gives you.
So I'll tell you how much revenue. Actually, I can't say full cycle, but like direct revenue from Business Growth Podcast. Drumroll, please. 0. Purposefully. I haven't wanted to monetize off of that podcast. And the reason why is because I don't know what the proper product is. Sure, I mean, we mentioned our agency and other stuff like that, but I'm more interested in the outcome of the relationships and providing really good information for our listeners. What the Business Growth Podcast has done for me is provided opportunities for me to meet with some incredible angel investors and venture capitalists and business minds that are way beyond my years. Guys that are, it was really comfortable to tread in circles with people that had businesses up to the 20 million, 20, 25 million a year mark. Like that's a comfortable waters to tread with. But talking with guys that have businesses, the 100 million mark, guys that have exited for over 100 million, 200, 300, 400, 500 million, that's really uncomfortable. And that's what the Business Growth Podcast has done for me. It's helped me network with those type of people, and they've connected me with others and really see that, wow, like the world is a lot more simple on that higher level than it is. You hear most like there's red flags. Like when I hear internet marketers, when anyone that's an internet marketer says my goal is to make $100,000 a year, I automatically know that they're new and that they're not making any money. It's an automatic red flag. $100,000 is that benchmark, or $10,000 a month. And so, for a person in that lifestyle realm, they're actually doing 1,000 times more work and more things than the guy that's actually at the $100 billion. It's weird. So that's what it's done for me. And then the interviews have changed people's lives. I've had a lot of people email me, post on Facebook, YouTube, say, wow, this interview really helped me out, or this provided me with this. And I try and provide content that's, stuff that's better than what people can pay for. So that's, yeah.
Gotcha. And I mean, that's part of why we are discussing podcasts, because people are seeing the value in doing it. And just to give an example, when I went to schedule with Kevin, I think it's say $150 for a 1-hour consultation, and then it's like podcast interview, 1 hour free. So it's kind of interesting how it's a hack in a way to speak with high level people. I mean, as you said, that you might not normally have the access to.
It's absolutely, like, if you're wanting to meet with really high level people, people that are unobtainable, like hourly rate wise or whatever, it's probably the best tool out there. However, if you interview someone for that fact and you don't publish it and you're not consistent, you will be lambasted. Like you will, like that's just how it works. I don't know, call it karma or whatever, but like the word will just go around. So make sure it's something that you really want to do. And the biggest thing is like just look for ways to help people, and follow through. One of the biggest things that a person could do if they're like a really big fan of the podcast, of a podcast or an author, is to be specific. Again, that goes back to like income-wise. Like people that don't make a lot of money talk in general terms. They would say things like, "I want to be successful," or they would say like, "Oh, I listened to your podcast and oh, it was so awesome, and like it's gonna make my business rock." You know that they're not successful and they're not making a lot of money. But if you went through and said, "Yo, Sweeney, like I listened to your interview with Kevin, and what I really got from it was bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And I took action on my business, and this is the result I got. Thanks so much." That's a high-value person, and they're probably going to get a response. So when people do that to me, or if I do that to other people, like, I've networked with, best-selling authors, like New York Times best-selling authors, by doing the same thing. "Hey, I read your book. I took action on this. Here's the result I got. Thank you so much." And they're like, "Whoa, hey, I'd love to talk with you on the phone." And you're like, "Well, I didn't expect this."
Yeah. And I think I think there's two things there. It's one, it's coming from the right place. So if you're doing this just to be a shyster, like don't bother. And it's the same thing with the podcast. Like don't go, "Ooh, so I can talk to this person for free instead of paying them on Clarity FM. And I don't have to pay the $8 a minute rate." No, like if you have a podcast, yes, but don't do it just for that. And then also in a way it's just delivering value. I mean, if I send you a comment and it's just like, "Man, you guys are awesome," I mean, that's a cool touch, that's a tickle. But if you instead say, "Hey, this really helped me for this reason," in a way you're delivering more value to that person.
Absolutely.
And like a higher level comment, and as you said with the phone calls and those kind of situations. So that's a very solid point. And that, so that'll probably lead into when we talk about guests. But first I want to take a real quick and focus on the technical side of things.
Sure.
So I have a few things listed. It probably seems like the easy list.
Okay.
So the Logitech C920 for filming seems to be the go. That's
the camera, yeah.
And then you like either the Rode Podcaster or the Blue Yeti?
Yeah, so there's several different mics. The mic I'm on right now, I'm going to show it. That's the Blue Snowball. And you can get it for $50. I have I don't know where it is. Oh, I bet I got it right here. I've also used this, which is a Logitech headset. Those work good. The Heil PR40, that's when you're getting high end. Your Blue Yeti's a good mic. The thing about a Blue Yeti and the thing with the Snowball is that they pick up the noise in the entire room. Then you can start stepping up to things like this, which is this is called the man, I'm trying to figure out this camera. This is called the Zoom H4n, and I can plug microphones in here. So I've got a couple different studio mics, and we've got like the Shure SM7Bs and stuff like that. And these things aren't cheap. $200-300. But yeah, it's the equipment. The equipment doesn't matter as much if you go through and clean it up and make it sound really good. Now, yesterday when I recorded, I didn't bring in. I didn't have my mixer. I wasn't in the studio, and so I'm glad it wasn't a video podcast. But what I did yesterday is I used for one of my interviews, my Blue Snowball, and I actually got a bed comforter, and I put it over my head and over the monitor, and I was sitting like in a cave, and the audio is incredible that way. So you just really want to be conscious of all the audio and the noises around, and then wearing headphones.
So if you had to go with one, I'm actually using a Snowball now. I'm probably gonna get a Yeti. Might get the Rode Podcaster. My buddy just got, I think he got the Rode Podcaster, so I might see if I like that and then grab one of those. How do you feel about the Rode Podcaster?
Rode Podcaster is a really good mic. I totally suggest it. There's another one that has been popping up recently that's had me pretty excited. It is called and I'm actually looking right now to tell you, it's called the Audio-Technica ATR 2100, and it's $80. You could probably get a little bit cheaper if you looked around, but it's a great mic. The good thing about it is that it's a USB and a XLR microphone, and it's a dynamic microphone. So the difference is the condensers. Condenser is like picking up everything. Your dynamic means that you have to talk into it, so all your ambient noise isn't getting picked up.
Is the Rode Podcaster dynamic as well, or no?
The Rode Podcaster is a dynamic, whereas the Snowball's a condenser.
Gotcha.
So that's when you get into like the geeky technical things. Now, there's stuff you can do to like take out the background noise and to boost up your levels and all that. For the Snowball, there's times when I have to do a voiceover. I have this ghetto box right here with with one of those Tempur-Pedic pillows, and I shove my microphone in there, and I talk into the box, and it sounds killer. And I mean, it's like $50, man.
Yeah. No, that's very. I've seen those before too. You can buy like a more professional one that's literally basically just a box, and it's
Yeah.
It's and to connect with people normally, if you'd be in a studio, so you'd be in kind of like a maybe elevator sized space that's where the mic is, and that's where you record, and it's padded and everything like that. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to replicate that controlled padded environment and basically have a small box for your microphone.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'll be in the studio later today where we have all that stuff, and it makes a huge difference. Now, for a lot of videos, if you're not doing a Skype, so like if it's an in-person podcast, you can just use your iPhone for video, and just make sure you have a really good audio source.
Gotcha. So, what do you recommend for the audio source if you are doing the iPhone recording?
So this is like on the higher end, the Zoom H4n, and you just plug your microphones into there, and you could use the built-in microphones, but the problem is when you use built-in microphones is it picks up all the noise, and your audio engineer, so when we're done, I send it off to our engineer. The best is like when you're using that Skype call recorder program, is that it has the track for the person speaking here and the track for the person speaking here. So it has both sides of the conversation. So that way the engineer can edit out any noise that's happening when you're not speaking. It can edit out that noise. So in person, this is a great device. You could honestly use, Wisty has done videos. If you had an iPhone and you had it really close to you, like you had it clamped and really close, it's going to sound good as long as you're in a really good environment. Like if you have if it's a tile floor or hardwood floor, it's probably going to sound like crap.
Gotcha. And shock mounts. What's a quick rundown on shock mounts?
So the shock mounts, what a shock mount is doing is it's creating a buffer so that like now you can probably hear that because I hit the table, so I don't have a shock mount. So it's one more barrier to keep away from any type of disturbance. More important than a shock mount is a pop filter. So it's a screen, and they're usually a circle. You can get them for like $5. In the old days, I grew up as a musician, so I've been recording in studios since I was like 16. We used to just take a coat hanger and put pantyhose over it. And The reason why is because whenever you say the word, like, it's called a plosion, so like the word P, like the letter P, like, it's like please, it makes your audio level just go berserk. Because it's so much air coming out of your mouth, and so if you have that pop filter, it's gonna make it so you don't have any of those plosions. Again, I'm getting into the geek stuff, and so everyone's gonna be like, oh,
No,
it's that
no.
guy.
I mean, because there's people that the reality is almost anyone you go into podcasting, you're probably gonna get a Snowball or a Yeti, or you're
Uh-huh.
just gonna use your laptop mic. You're gonna do 5 to 10 episodes, and then you're gonna go, man, I need better audio. I really like this. Let's spend some money. So I feel like it does happen fast. You go, okay, I need the better equipment. So this does help people.
Yeah. If you're doing like, you can also use a. I don't think I have it next to me. Um, a lapel microphone. Audio Technica makes one. They're like I've got a couple of them. They're corded. They're like $20. It's called a lavalier mic or lapel. It goes onto your shirt, and you can use those for interviews. Um, the big thing is like if you're editing your audio. So if you're using a program like Audacity, just go through. A big tip is before you start recording, leave a good 5 seconds of clean dead air. So like, or at the very end, leave a good 5 seconds of clean dead air, because every room has a sound to it. So once you've got that gap, that clean dead air where no one's talking but it's got the ambient noise, you go into Audacity and go to the noise remover, and you can take a sample of that clean dead air, and then you can say, okay, here's what the room sounds like. Now you select the entire track and you say take all of that away. And so all of that, like when you record on a laptop, you get that like really hissy sound, like a gain, and you can tell like you're on a laptop kind of sound. Audacity will take all of that away just by that simple move. And then you go through and then normalize it and then compress it. So it takes your file from being like really flat and thin to like beefing it up. And then the biggest things are like improving the equalization, the EQ. So what makes your voice sound better is the bass. And especially like for your microphones, if you have a microphone, if you're using a headset, you want the microphone to be below your lips, almost at your jaw line. And you want your microphone to sit below you as well, because you get a deeper sound out of your chest cavity and from your jawline coming out. Whereas if your microphone's up higher, it's going to be really nasal sounding.
So is
So
that why when they set up in the shock mount, they'll kind of put it more like down here?
yeah, so they'll like they would do a shock mount and it would kind of be like right like this, right at this level here,
Gotcha.
because they want it off that jaw.
So it seems like the shock mount actually isn't too important. Or
It's not
looks
terrible.
cool.
It's not terribly important. If you want to spend the extra $20-$30, go for it. I have a shock mount that I put this on a lot of the time, and I have other mics on, and that way I can just swing it over, and it's out of the way. Nothing's gonna hit it. There's a buffer to it, but the pop filter is way more important than a shock mount.
And for the pop filter, I actually went out and I bought one before, and I kind of bought like a more standard musical recording one. So it hasn't been very flexible because the stand sucks basically.
Yeah.
So is there a particular pop filter that you recommend, or it really just kind of depends on the microphone?
Natty makes one here. I've got. In fact, here I'll show you. I've got another. I've got another microphone with me that I was recording earlier. So this is the pop filter, and see how it's on a shock mount,
Mm-hmm.
and it just mounts on right there, and so it sits right in front of the microphone, and then it's on a big stand.
Gotcha.
So I'm fully geeked out, man.
No,
I'm fully geeked out.
It's the kind of stuff where you have to dig and dig and dig normally to kind of try to find and piece together this information. So I think for anyone, it provides a lot of value to just be able to go back and listen and kind of get the full perspective. and know like, all right, this is where I can enter. This is a medium level, and this is if I want to fully geek out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think if you're just entering iTunes headphones and your basic microphone, like a Blue Snowball's $50, a Yeti's $80, $90. You're gonna be fine as long as you're in like just be cognizant of your room. And if you're not doing video, then a really simple thing is just like to get like a ladder or two ladders and like put a like a big bed sheet behind you, like a comforter behind you and then in front of you, because you have to look at sound waves, like they bounce around. If you are on video, then just figure out what you can do to make it look good and sound good.
gotcha. And for that Audacity trick with the 5 seconds of dead air,
Uh-huh.
is that how would you actually? What's the particular setting you're using there? What's the
So what you're going to do is you go into Audacity and you're going to find your like 5 seconds of dead air. You select it. So you highlight that, and then you go to noise removal. And then you're going to get the noise sample. I believe that's what it's called. And so it's going to sample what that sound is. And then you go through and then you select the entire track, and then you do the noise removal, and then you apply the settings that you already created with that sound preference.
Gotcha. Awesome tip. I mean, I've never heard of that before, and it seems like the best way to do it and a simple way to do it, but I can see where that would get some great results.
Yeah, it's really it's simple. It works great.
Now with the guests,
Uh-huh.
obviously, if there's three parts to a podcast, guests might be the biggest part and the middle part. Um, you've mentioned a lot of great things already, and I've actually have kind of two questions around those. But
Sure.
I'm interested. So I know everybody has different ways. I'm interested in basically how you find your guests, how you reach out to them, kind of follow up, scheduling, and the research and questioning. Like I've seen you mention follow up CC, reportive, canned responses, some of these different things. So I'm interested to see how you use them all together. So
Okay.
let's first start with how do you go about finding your guests?
So I don't do the typical thing that a lot of internet marketers do. So I think we've all heard of the term syndicate. So a lot of internet marketers, you'll notice that many times it's like all the same people doing the same thing here, and then they go to I'll interview on this podcast and you interview on my podcast, and it's just like this cycle. And the problem with it is it's really a disguised marketing ploy and soft sales tactic for the most part. It's really dudes just saying, oh, well, hey, you'll build my subscribers, I'll build your subscribers, and we'll sell this product and blah. And I don't see really a lot of value transfer. Now, in some circumstances, that may work. And truth be told, like if you want to get a lot of views and subscribers, then you need to do a little bit of that stuff with the right people to be able to pull that in and to aggregate your numbers. But what I'm looking for overall is I personally love the people that most people don't know about, and that are getting real life results. Not necessarily that they're a good teacher, but I want to know about the results so that I can take their framework. And so I'll use Scott Paul, for example. I interviewed him. I doubt anyone on our conversation knows who Scott Paul is. But Scott created a company called Armor Interactive. And if you've ever been to any trade shows, like CES or any trade show, and you've seen those iPad enclosures, like those metal cases that an iPad sits in, he invented that, and he created it. The company is worth millions upon millions of millions of millions of dollars. I mean, he's got a ton of employees. I've been through his factory. It's awesome. And I love meeting with people like him and hearing how he built that company and what he did, and he actually recently exited and sold that company. And now he's working on a project with some billionaires, like some Russian billionaires. It's pretty awesome. So it's that kind of stuff. That's what I really want to know. Now, how do I find those people? Well, TechCrunch, Hacker News, that's where a lot of interesting people are. It's people that I associate with. And so I ask friends, who do you know that's really interesting that I don't know? Or who do you know that's really interesting that most people don't know? I want to know that kind of stuff. Because, getting on the most guests, like doing the rounds, like you've done, like I've done it enough that I'm like, oh, yep, here's story number 1. Let's hear it. Okay. And they get to be the point, like, they want it very scripted. Like, you need to ask me these questions, and here's what I'm going to promote. And you're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. So I guess I'm selfish.
It's kind of like the old school, like going on a radio show when someone does a tour, like a book tour, and they basically give the same 15 to 20-minute conversation to every single radio show.
Mm-hmm. And it is a lot that way. And that's why, I've tried to be disruptive and not do that and provide a unique perspective. Now the tools, followup.cc and Reportive is big to be able to see who that guest is, and there's some hacks you can do with Reportive. Reportive is a Gmail extension for everyone that doesn't know. And what you can actually do is you can guess, like, say it's a person that is really hard to get in touch with, or you're not connected to them, you can guess what their email address might be. And you can type it into Reportive, and their profile will show up. Now you've got their real email address that's connected to their Facebook and their Google and LinkedIn. But overall, the very best way to get guests is to get the implied endorsement. That's back to Cialdini's influence. If you know someone that I want to interview, it's going to be far more leveraged and happening if I go through and say, hey, Sweeney, can you introduce me to this person? But the truth is, if you introduce, if you ask for it, most of the time people are thrilled to do the podcast if you can spell out the benefits for them.
Gotcha. I remember, I'm guessing you're probably familiar with Ryan Holiday, and someone asked him in one of his AMAs, they're like, what's the best way to do a cold introduction? And he's like, don't do a cold introduction. Get someone you know to introduce you to that person. Mm-hmm. And it's, it's funny but it's one of those things where people are always looking for like the easiest route, and it's, well, use what you already have and get an introduction somehow, and you're gonna have a lot better results. And if you don't have an introduction, well, then don't let it deter you from still reaching out. So I'm interested. So you mentioned spell out the benefits, and then also when you're talking about earlier, kind of reaching out to different people and kind of providing this, I'll call it high value feedback. So I'm wondering if you've ever used that to get a guest. So
absolutely.
Said, like, hey, I read your book. I thought these 3 points were great. It helped me so much with this. By the way, I do have a podcast. Would love to have you on sometime, or
Absolutely. That's what happened with Naveen Didakavi. We're in a group together, and he was explaining, he was helping a lot of different people answering questions. And so I messaged him and I said, hey, and I specifically listed out what he did. I said, here is the answer you gave, and here is what I took action on, and then here's the result I got. I really appreciate it. By the way, I have a podcast. If you ever come out with a product or you want to promote your brand, I would love to have you on as a guest, and I would promote you. And he came back and he's like, oh man, I'd be thrilled. And I wasn't expecting that. In fact, I was really nervous to do that one. You know what I mean? And same thing, like I've interviewed Mike Hill. He's a pretty well-known figure in the internet marketing world. Honestly, Mike's one of the nicest, most humble guys in the world. I remember I was nervous. Jeez, when was that? Back then, and I'd even like hung out with Mike. I'd had lunch with Mike before the podcast, but I was still nervous. And Mike's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, "You're good at this." He's like, "I'm a normal dude. Like, don't freak out. Don't be weird." And if you are specific at letting people know how they've helped you and that you genuinely want to help them, they're totally going to be game for it.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I remember I had a mentor of sorts, and what you said with the let me see, the answer action results. I
Mm-hmm.
remember him telling me, he said, and I wasn't sure if he was like, being metaphorical to our situation or if he was just telling me an example of a scenario, but something that always stuck with me, and it's basically if you ask someone a question and if someone gives advice, take action on that advice.
Yes.
So if if you're talking about sending out emails and being consistent, for example, and someone sent you a message like, hey, I started being more consistent with my emails, I made sure I sent out at least one email a week, and these are the results I've got. So if you ask a question, ask for her advice, you take action and then come back with the results, that's how you build a mentorship relationship. That's
Yep.
how you build, a relationship with anybody, because there's so much advice going around and questions always, and people do get a little droned out and a little tiresome of it. So when you're actually coming back with something, I mean, look what happened. You got that guy on your podcast. So
Yeah, and the other thing to think about is if you ask advice from someone and you don't follow up with them, the likelihood of them giving you advice in the future is very low. So even if the results you got were awful, many
yeah,
times they'll be invested in you and saying, hey, wow, you didn't get the results I thought you'd get. Like, why? Oh, you should iterate this way or whatever it may be.
and that's exactly what he was saying. He used the example of asking for, hey, cool vacation, take my girlfriend, and maybe you both like the beach, but they say somewhere cold. Or if you go somewhere cold and come back to them, it's that kind of feedback loop. And as you said, then they do become vested in you and invested in you, and
They
it
do.
creates a better relationship. When you spell out the benefits for the podcast, is there anything particular you highlight? So you're like, hey, we have this many guests, this many subscribers or listeners, or what's your
Most
pitch?
most people that don't have an ego don't care about that. Those numbers actually never even arise. So does that mean that if you have a brand new podcast, you could get an A-player guest? Possibly. You have to be able to spell out how it's going to benefit them and how you're going to use it. So, for example, bullet point. You want to let them know. I'll give you an example. So, hey, I would love to have you on the podcast. My podcast is for startup founders and entrepreneurs, and it's all focused on business growth. Now, most of my episodes fall within two sweet spots, between 22 and 27 minutes long, or they're right around 40 to 50 minutes long. So what we'll need to do is plan out about an hour. I'll take care of all the research. I'll take care of all the production. We'll schedule it. And then I'll get you links and everything in advance, and then you'll have full ownership to do whatever you want with that material. The basis is to help our customers. I'm not selling any products. I'm not doing anything that is to take away your brand or tarnish it. It's to help build you, and it's to help build our brand. Now, if you have sponsors, that's fine, as long as as long as your sponsorship is in congruence with whatever it is. If it's like a sleazy acai berry product, blah blah blah. I don't know if that's going to be the best thing for your guest's reputation, but it's like making it easy for them and then spelling it out. Now, in the follow-up email after they've said yes, I want to do it, now you've got more work to do. And that's where you say, okay, great. So here's how we typically interview, and you can say it's going to be on Skype or a Google Hangout or however else you want to do it. If it's in person from an event or local, but you want to explain that to them. I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. What are the best, and then ask them, make sure you're connected on Facebook or LinkedIn and you've done some social cyber stalking or whatever. And then from there, that's where Rapportive helps. And then from there, what you want to do is you go through and ask them, hey, what cause or website are you promoting? You want to ask them that. And you don't, and I screwed up at the beginning when I first did podcasts. I'd be like, oh, well, how can they learn more about you? Blah, blah, blah. And you shouldn't do that. You should say, hey, this is, his website. Go here. And another thing is like ask them, do you want people to communicate with you through email? Is it okay if I say your email address in the podcast? Do you want people to communicate with you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle? Things like that. So just it's taking out all of the mystery and doing all the work for them. And then you showing that you've done your homework. If you can do a pre-call, that's good. If they're really busy, then you say, hey, you know what? Our recording will probably be, and tell them the time slots. But what we'll do is we'll probably spend a good 5 minutes getting to know each other before we actually hit record. So letting them know all that stuff. And then if it's video, letting them know it's video. And then letting them know, hey, bring some earphones. Helps out with that sound quality. And it's just taking the mystery out of things. And I know it sounds like elementary, but they really, really appreciate that. All guests do.
Yeah, and one of the things when I had Los on and we discussed it, and I've done some podcasts with him, and I'm starting to get through the, I would say I'm through the beginner stage, getting into the medium stage, trying to become a pro like yourself, though. And
oh man, I don't know about that.
Part of it though is we forget that after you've done 5 podcasts, after you've done 10 podcasts, there's these beginner things that you forget. And for example, you say you're interviewing these interesting people. What if they've never done a podcast?
Yeah.
So for us, you probably had an idea of, hey, maybe he's gonna send me a Google Hangout link, or we're gonna Skype, and it wasn't a big deal to you. But maybe this person's never actually done a broadcasted Google Hangout, and now you're sending them a link, and they're kind of freaked out. And it's a big part of the interview process is, I think, making them feel comfortable. And part of making them feel comfortable, especially as people that may have only done 1 or 2 podcasts or none, is, as you say, getting rid of the unknown and getting as much of it, kind of out there and ahead of time. And
it makes a huge difference.
What I've been doing too, and what he does, and what I've kind of learned is I'll always have at least some sort of questions and just main subjects that the first 5 minutes I'll be like, hey, I'm probably gonna go through these things. Is that cool? I remember my first podcast guest ever. I was like, hey, so you're a founder here and a founder here. He's like, actually, I don't work with either of those companies anymore. So, I had to cut through like half my questions, and it's that kind of thing. But it's better me find out that in the pre-call than live on air.
Yeah. Doing your homework is a big thing, like the research on the customer, or on, not the customer, but the person you're interviewing. That's big. Just getting to know what circles they tread in, what they've done, what their language is. Language is like what language? Like, for example, startup speaking. Like if we're talking to internet marketers and I'm like, yeah, you need to know what your CAC is and your MMR and stuff like that. Internet marketers are gonna be like, what the crap is this? But a startup guy is gonna be like, that's their language. So you have to learn to speak other people's language. And another thing is I use now, I've developed systems to it. Gmail canned responses. I don't know if you're familiar with those. It's a part of their labs division, and you can create an email and make it a template. So now I have templates for Hangouts, for podcasts, and all that. So when it's a new guest, I can just click canned response, select the one that it is, and then fill in the the specific information for them. But like the meat of it, like the technical stuff, it's already filled out. So I've created little systems like that. For scheduling, I've used Schedule Once. We have Visita right now, and my buddy Dan is using a new program that I want to try out. So.
Visita?
Yeah, Visita.
Is that what you use for scheduling with your podcast, or?
I've used Schedule Once for scheduling my podcasts. Kevin uses Visita, and I have a Visita account. I just don't use it as much.
It's called Schedule Once?
Yeah, Schedule Once.
Okay. And so you have any fine points there as far as, I was talking with my good friend Los, and he was saying, so I'll normally hit him, I think like the day before, maybe 15 minutes before, then the link when it's live is, how do you, because cancellations are a reality, and you want to kind of keep those to a minimum. So how do you go about your follow-up? So
once I've got it scheduled, let's say we've got one scheduled next week. So today's, for continuity purposes, we'll say today is Wednesday, and next Wednesday I've got another one. So that's a week away. the first email, if I've already done the introduction and they've agreed to do the podcast, then the next email is sending them the technical information. Hey, it's going to be on Skype. Here's my Skype ID. And it's going to take this time, blah, 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 blah. So you're getting them more of the technical information. Make sure you bring a pair of headphones. Hey, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. Here's my cell phone number. So you do that, and then that's where I use followup.cc, because then I'll BCC that email, and I'll say 4 days, follow up with this person. So on Monday, it's going to send me an email. And on Monday, I just send them an email, say, hey, really looking forward to our interview on Wednesday. Is there anything, any special request, anything special I can do to help you out to make it a better experience? Really simple, like 1-2 sentences. Most of the time it's, no, man, I'm really looking forward to it. Then you reply back, awesome. If there is, let me know. Here's my cell phone. Like, make sure you're really available for them. Wednesday comes around, and you go through, and if they're on Skype, you can do something as simple as, hey, really looking forward to an interview in a couple hours. See you then. Or if it's email, you can do the, hey, really looking forward to email in a couple hours. I don't typically do that on email. I'll do it on Skype. Then the next, you could do it with a Facebook message as well. But the other thing is, make sure you have it on a Google Calendar. So at the inception, when they agree, do the calendar invite. So make sure you do that.
And so what does schedule once actually do then?
So schedule once, it makes it so they can go to your specific page and they can select a time that they want to do the interview. So you give them available time slots. And then it does the follow-up emails. So it'll say, hey, this is Spencer. Our podcast is going to be on blank date, and my Skype ID is here. If you have any questions, here's my cell phone. So it provides all that information. So you don't have to do the back and forth with the email. But most, again, this comes back to like what I've said a couple times, like most A players, high net worth, highly successful people are very high contact inside of email. And I said this with another interview I did recently, people that are really hard to get in touch with are B players for the most part. The A players, the most high valuable people, respond very quickly. And they're great people to deal with.
I remember someone was actually talking about it on Reddit, and they were mentioning how Mark Cuban had invested in them from Shark Tank, I believe. And basically how they were amazed that he would always respond to them within like an hour or 2 hours, like some ridiculous time slot considering the amount of his investment too, and obviously how much he's doing, but it feeds back to that point of A-level players.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'll do, like I respond to a lot of people, is just leveraging tools. Like Cuban, he said that he answers with his email. I'll answer with video a lot. So I use Jing, and like if someone asks, like, hey, review this copy, is there something I'm missing? Or I'm dealing with a founder, and they're like, hey, I'm trying to do this with the funnel. I'm messing up on the inception of this. What could I do? I'll just throw on Jing, and I'll just talk for like 2 or 3 minutes and then send them the link. I'll be like, hey, I hope this really helps you out. Here's my insights. So for me, like, I do better thinking on my feet and talking than I do typing. But I still take the time to respond back to people. And even if it's like you can't get a full response to them, that's where followup.cc really helps. It's like, hey, Sweeney, I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Here is blah. Answer something. Let me know how else I can help. I'm tied up, but I'm here to help you. And then followup.cc, couple days. Hey, did you get that resolved? What can I do to help? So it's that kind of stuff. Really hyper like customer person focused.
And to feed back into the research and in the kind of questioning, I'm interested with your research. Do you have a specific system that you use for your research? For your research, is there a way that you go about Googling them? I mean, besides Reportive and what you get on their social networks, and I guess just coming out and asking them, hey, is there anywhere I can find out more about you?
So when I ask them where I can find out about them, I use Reportive so that now I can connect with them on Facebook if I choose, or LinkedIn, or Twitter. I want to see where they're active. I want to see what they do on Instagram or Twitter, things like that. You can use other tools. There's another tool called BuzzSumo. It's a newer tool, and it's really good for um, specific niches. But you can type in a person's name, and you can get aggregated content and information about them.
There's also a new iPhone app called Refresh.
Refresh.
Yeah. But I've used it a little bit. So far, I'm not sold on it. And I'll kind of see. I mean, it's one of those where you have to. I'm not sure how much data is there. Like, if it might be better for people you've previously connected with. Like, say if we're already Facebook friends, then it can pull a lot of data. But if you haven't met before, then maybe it can't pull that data because of privacy settings and what have you. So then it's not as valuable. So I'm still kind of seeing that because everyone, especially now with podcasts and in this day and age. I mean, you've heard probably the 150 number before.
Which one? Doing 150 episodes or what?
No. It was very open. Basically, like mentally, we can only handle like 150, friendships.
Oh yeah.
So in this day and age, we have way more than that. And I was even thinking back to traffic and conversion. I met someone, and I want to connect him with someone else, and I'm like, I can't even remember his name. I'm like, I'm gonna have to just go through my phone until like I hit it. And I've been looking for kind of a Rolodex that I could start using. So
I tried one Contactually. That's what it's called. I set up an account with Contactually, and my buddy Joel mentioned it to me. I didn't find it was easily adoptable. It probably works. I just didn't really like the UI too much. Mm-hmm. But Joel swears by it. What it does is essentially you get to categorize the people in your database, and so it aggregates like your Gmail contacts, your Facebook, LinkedIn, and all that stuff. And then it says how often do you want to follow up and like be in touch with these people, and then it sends you the reminders to do that. I've just set up spreadsheets like in Google.
I do feel like that's I mean, there's different solutions, but God, I wish someone would just figure that out.
Yeah, supposedly contextual is the answer. No, the problem that I had with creating a system for that, like a Google spreadsheet, was that to me it felt inauthentic because it was a system. It was like robotic. But the thing is, you have your Facebook friend birthdays. I have them come into my Google Calendar, so I know in advance like when people's birthdays are. So hey dude, like, I can call them before, send them something or whatever it may be. That's a system, and so there's only so much willpower, only so much brain power that we can actually do. And so if you do a spreadsheet and it says, hey, every 30 days I need to stay in touch with these 20 people. Every 90 days I need to stay in touch with these people. Something like that. It's really valuable.
Even the feedback to this guy, like, I know the reason why I want to connect them is they're both kind of in Forex, and it's like one of those things where I feel like there should be an easy way I can just search for Forex or look for the Forex tag, and then boom, all right, found this guy, because I don't know that many people in it, but I don't have that system.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Now, with providing value to your guests, is there anything, we've considered a few different things. I was talking with my partner, like he was like, oh, it'd be really cool if we sent them. I know with send out cards, for example, you can send brownies or something.
Yeah, we've done that.
And I was saying to him, I'm like, well, I feel like it's a little disingenuous to be like, hey, what's your address so I can send you a gift? It's like, the surprise is part of the fun. But I'm wondering, besides maybe the gift card aspect, if you've done it, what you've seen work.
Don't do gift cards. Do something physical because you want them to remember you.
Okay.
So that's the thing. One of my favorite things to do. So we've done send out cards, but honestly, one of my favorite things is find out what they're interested in. So I'll send books to people. Another thing I really love to send are $6 shirts. So there's a website, $6 shirts. They have the most hilarious shirts, like all kinds of stuff. And I find a really cool shirt and that I love sending that stuff. Because it's something like they'll wear it and they'll remember you, or they're just like it's just cool. Like you're sending some goodwill. Um, for a person recently, a friend that connected me with someone else, I sent him a 30-day supply of like nootropics because he's into like nootropics and stuff. So I was like super stoked. Like he's been awesome helping me out. So we've talked about it. We've had conversation. He's never mentioned to me like, man, I wish someone would buy me. I just went out and I bought him a 30-day supply of nootropics. And I was like, hey, what's your address? And I asked him, before I bought it, what's your address? He's like, here it is. Why? I was like, I just hooked you up. He's like, sweet. And now he's like super stoked. So
I like it. I like it. I mean, so that's more on the kind of like gift side, I guess let's say.
uh-huh.
So kind of on the networking, connection, or even providing value, is there anything you kind of do for your guests, or you try to do for your guests? I mean, I imagine some of it's
Yes.
situational.
I try and always connect my guest with someone else that's going to provide value to them. Always try and do that. So, for example, I'll be connecting Scott and Davis today. They are both really sharp, and they should be connected, but they're not. Davis has a lot of Sand Hill connections that will help out Scott. Scott has a lot of New York connections that will help out Davis. And so I'm helping by facilitating that. I'm putting those two together. And the good thing is, the more people that I connect, the more I become the hub at all of those relationships. And that's being evil and selfish, but it's true.
No, I mean, I know a guy who does a million a year, and he basically has a real estate mastermind, and boom, he's the hub of the connections, and he gets involved with deals, and he brings people together, and he creates a lot of success for people, and he's created a lot of success for himself. So definitely something there. All right, so to kind of close out, is there any particular ways you go about promoting your podcast? Any iTunes hacks or Stitcher hacks or getting ratings or anything
Sure.
to that effect? So the podcast is done. The guest has never been more happy. He got brownies, nootropics, and a $6 shirt, and then the podcast is about to go live. Besides everyone making sure they have a blog, just saying that just in case.
Okay, so if you're starting out a brand new podcast, there's a certain few things that you really need to do, that your focus needs to be on. And it's going to take a little bit of extra time, but it has to be done. One, you have to make sure that you have a good name to your podcast. Two, good artwork. The artwork is probably more important than the name. The name is kind of irrelevant because, a stick, but good artwork. Really good artwork. So I'm not talking about crap $5 artwork, like from Fiverr, but like good artwork. Now that doesn't mean you have to spend like hundreds and hundreds or thousands. Like you could probably get someone on Odesk or whatever, or design it yourself. Get really good artwork. And then when you put out your podcast, make sure that you are concise and you know exactly who you're speaking to. If your audience is too wide, so I want to have my message to moms and help them become more fit. Like, dude, that is not, you know what I mean? Like focus a lot. Oh, I want to help business owners. No, like get really focused and know exactly who it is, and then write your summary according to that. Like know who it is. So that's a couple of the things, but the real secret sauce is that new and noteworthy. And I've got, with our company PodKick, we have gotten every single of our customers into new and noteworthy. Every single one. Because we know the formula to it. A part of the formula is consistency. You have to understand that like new and noteworthy, like the actual Apple, like the way that iTunes works, is it's human beings. Like they're people that are actually approving. It's not a computer. And so you want it so that it's appealing. They want to see consistency. So when you start your podcast, start it with more than one episode. Like load a couple episodes. So you're kind of putting something into it. You're kind of oiling up the well. And then create a consistent campaign and move forward with that.
Gotcha. Is there anything particular to the ratings, reviews, or make sure you're on Stitcher? So outside of Stitcher and iTunes, anything else in that direction?
I mean, obviously getting ratings and reviews is really valuable. Don't ever pay for ratings or reviews. I've seen people do Fiverr, and it's not a good go. Let your audience know. So if you have an email list, even if it's like 100 people, let them know about it and give them a reason to subscribe to the podcast and give them a reason to leave a rating. And some of the reasons could be as simple as, hey, look, we're just starting this podcast and I think it'll really benefit you. It's in line with the other stuff that we've given and other valuable information. Now I want to do something special only for my email subscribers, and here it is. If you leave a review on iTunes and you send me the screenshot, I'm going to give you this. It could be a product. It could be a consultation. It could be a training. It could be blah, 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 blah. And only you guys are going to get this. That's it. But you have to do this. And even if you hate the podcast, say that you hate it. That's fine. I just want an honest, good, I want an honest, good review. And by doing that, you're getting people to give you that feedback. That's one of the most valuable things you can do, is getting those reviews in there.
And how do the actual subscribers affect the iTunes to a degree? Because I don't subscribe to any podcast. I have podcasts that I listen to regularly, but I'll just look through the recent guests and download them. But I'm interested, obviously ratings are a big part, but I'm wondering how many actual subscribers you have.
So yes, subscribers and views, they're correlated, but on the new and noteworthy, if you have a spike of views, then you can be noticed in the new and noteworthy. And then what's going to help continue to keep it in there is the ratings, your reviews itself, and the subscribers. The advantage of the subscribers that most people don't realize about a podcast and why it's so leverageable is if you create a banner ad or you run a Facebook ad or a Google ad, it's only showing up for that time. But if you have an ad inside of your podcast, and the ad could simply be, hey, make sure you subscribe to our podcast, that stays in there forever. Like that's content, and I've gone back to certain podcasts and I've listened to stuff from like 2009, and they have ads from back then. So that's where the value piece is, and it's just so much more intimate.
Gotcha. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Well, I think that categories. I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
There any secret sauce to categories?
You want to find a category that one is relevant to your audience and that you can do well in. Certain categories are easier than others, and a lot of people are really jumping into the podcasting bandwagon. The bad. So here's the good and bad. The bad thing about everyone jumping into podcasting is that it clutters up the space. Now, luckily, there's somewhat of a barrier to entry to become a podcast. You have to get it edited and created in your artwork, and then you have to submit. And the submission process isn't terribly difficult, but it's going to filter out some people. Probably the best thing is that it's a lot of work to be consistent with a podcast. It's a hell of a lot of work, and that's good because people that aren't in it for the long haul are going to get out. Now, as far as category-wise, certain categories are going to be harder than others. And I think if you're doing a podcast strictly for like trying to monetize as an affiliate, like I think taking the idea of monetizing on a podcast itself, totally not going to happen. Like that idea should just be thrown out the door. Because it goes back to like your venture capital kind of stuff. So if you're doing a startup and you're bootstrapping, the likelihood of you actually becoming successful is really low when you're bootstrapping. And by bootstrapping, I mean like using your own funds and you're burning the midnight oil. Like your likelihood is low. However, if you have venture capital money or you have runway, you have the ability to look at things with some foresight and maybe even hire out some stuff so that you can work on your best effort and your best ability, then you can stick with it longer, and then the podcast will actually turn off. And that's once you've kept on that runway, then that's when you start to really get the sponsorships, the viewers, the downloads, the subscribers, the opt-ins, and everything else. But rarely does it happen on day one.
Definitely a good point, and I think people that do look at podcasts, and that's why I mentioned my YouTube buddy. Trying to get paid off ad impressions is a basically dead system. There's the people that get to the million subscribers. There are the Joe Rogan podcasts. I mean, these things happen, but even him himself says, hey, this is a better vehicle to promote myself and my comedy, and that's why my shows sell out. And like with you with the Business Growth podcast, you haven't tried to monetize it yet, but the relationships that you've gotten have in a way given you something more valuable than money. But
closing like with one thing, my buddy Joel, he's a musician. He's actually he's traveled the world as a musician. He's played in some really well-known, famous bands, and he said something the other day. He said, back in high school, I used to play at parks or on the street corner with my guitar for money, and he said if I was doing it now, I'd be playing for email addresses. And I thought, dude, that is so true. And that's what really the change of our world is, like podcasts and stuff. And so when people, see the Pat Flynn income or the Entrepreneur on Fire income, and they're like, oh, man, that's crazy. If you focus on that, it's never going to happen. But if you focus on the email addresses, on the customers, and the long haul, then it does come around.
Very, very solid point. That's a funny story. That makes a lot of sense, but I've never, I don't know, musician playing for email addresses really drives it home.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for coming on. Like I mentioned, paidtraffic.co. That is your digital ad agency. They do incredible things. So if anyone is looking to have someone manage their ads, definitely the guys to go to. We also have PodKick. So if you are looking to do a podcast, I mean, kind of give us a quick, what can a PodKick do for someone?
Sure. So what we have is we have a couple different packages. Most people are doing a weekly podcast. And so that's why we run our PodKick as 4 episodes a month. And we've got it as on the low end where, someone just says, you know what, hey, I recorded it, I don't want to edit, but I want it to sound really good, and I want my artwork to be attached to it, and I want this file to be ready so I can send it to iTunes. We take care of it for you. And it's less than $100 a month to get all 4. You could have your whole podcast done for less than $100 a month. That's on the basic edit and all that stuff. Now we have other packages where we actually go through and we do a really intense edit where we add the voiceover, music, we cut out all the ums and ahs, we make it sound like a radio. Even if you're on a crappy iPhone, we can make it sound awesome. And we add your artwork, we do show notes, a transcription, we have Pinterest and Instagram images that come with it specific for your episode. You get a branded PDF for the episode, and then you get your very own show producer to help you learn about where the podcast is going well, where it needs help, and they give you feedback on what you can do to get more listeners, and they help you with that process. They're your advocate, and that's actually less than $1,000 a month for that. So it's a pretty cool service. We love it, man. We've got awesome engineers that work for us. Killer team. It's really, really fun.
It sounds really awesome, and with a lot of these things, business owners, it's remember to focus on what you're good at and have people handle the rest. If you have the money maybe to do a podcast, you have the time, but you don't have some of these technical skills, save yourself the headache. Get someone else who can do it for you, can help you out, because I know once you're looking at XLR mics and you have different recording systems and setups, and I've dealt with Final Cut Pro, I've dealt with some editing, and it can be pretty complex.
Man, it's tough. It's really
So,
tough.
and also the Business Growth Podcast, which I'm pretty sure can be found at the businessgrowthpodcast.com.
Businessgrowthpodcast.com or in iTunes.
Got you. And if people want to reach out to you personally, obviously, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I will find a way to connect with you. But if people want to reach out to you personally.
And they can hit me up at Spencer@businessgrowthpodcast.com. That's fine.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Yeah, shoot me an email. That's fine. I go on Twitter like once a month, so I should probably be more consistent.
Yeah, I found Twitter. Well, first off, you're an A-level player, so he'll check your email. But I found Twitter, depending on the circle you're in, can work extremely well. So I mean, that's a side note for our listeners. But if you depends what channel you're in. Internet marketing. Sometimes it's Facebook. It's really easy to connect with people. If you're dealing with kind of more old school business owners, it might be the LinkedIn. Sometimes it's email. Sometimes it's even phone calls. And keep that in mind, because it depends where your audience is.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks a lot for coming on. Appreciate it.
This is great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully your listeners will be able to pull out some nuggets to help them in their business.
Oh, no, I think so. This is the podcast masterclass.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.